The third knock. Some doors are locked to keep people out. Others are locked to keep something inside. I work as a hotel safety inspector. To put it simply, my job is to travel around the country, spend a few nights in newly built or recently renovated hotels, and write reports on their security systems, fire safety measures, surveillance cameras, and emergency procedures. It's probably one of the most boring jobs in the world. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. Until my last assignment. The town of Black Creek had a population of just over 3,000 people. The only road leading into town cut through a dense pine forest where GPS signals disappeared every few minutes. By the time I arrived, it was almost 10 at night. The Raven Hill Hotel sat alone on top of a small hill. It was a 3-story building that had originally been built in the 1950s. The front had been renovated, but the wooden frame was still so old that every gust of wind made it groan like someone slowly walking across the ceiling. The woman at the front desk looked to be around 70 years old. She handed me the room key but didn't let go immediately. Instead, she stared at me for several seconds before asking, "Are you traveling alone?" "Yeah." She nodded slowly. "If you hear 3 knocks at your door, don't answer." I laughed. "Local superstition?" She didn't smile. She simply slid the registration form across the counter. In the bottom corner, someone had handwritten a sentence in faded ink. "Do not leave your room after 3:13 a.m. I assumed it was just another haunted hotel gimmick. Places like this loved creating creepy stories so guests would post about them online. I didn't think much of it. My room number was 312. The last room at the end of the 3rd floor hallway. Directly across from the emergency stairwell. The first thing I noticed was how empty the floor was. As I walked down the hallway, I only saw 3 occupied rooms. 312, 313, 314. Only 3. Each room separated by exactly 3 doors. I chuckled to myself. Whoever designed this place really loved the number 3. After taking a shower, I opened my laptop and started finishing my inspection report. The hallway outside was completely silent. So silent that I could hear the ticking of the old wall clock inside my room. 12:07. 12:38. 1:16. Time felt strangely slow. Sometime close to 2 in the morning. I heard wheels rolling outside. Clack. 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 It sounded exactly like a hospital gurney being pushed across the floor. The sound stopped right outside my room. Then, it continued, slowly disappearing toward the far end of the hallway. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was completely empty. Yet I could still hear it. As if an invisible stretcher was being pushed through the darkness. At exactly 3:13 a.m. The lights flickered. My phone lost its signal. The Wi-Fi disappeared. Then the television turned on by itself. There was no picture. Only static. Slowly, words appeared in the center of the screen. "Don't answer." At that exact moment. Knock. 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 3 soft knocks echoed from the other side of my door. I remembered what the receptionist had said. "Don't open it. Don't answer." I froze. 10 seconds. 20. A full minute. Nothing. The silence returned. I finally let out a breath. Then my phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. Why didn't you open the door? Every hair on my body stood up. No one knew my personal phone number. Before I could even process it, another message appeared. I'm still standing outside. I rushed to the peephole again. The hallway was empty. Another vibration. Stop looking through the peephole. My heart nearly stopped. If there was no one outside, how did whoever sent the message know exactly what I was doing? I immediately tried calling the police. No signal. I grabbed the satellite phone I carried for work. Nothing. Even my laptop had completely lost its internet connection. It felt as though the entire hotel had been cut off from the rest of the world. Then, I heard footsteps. Not outside. Above me. On the ceiling. Someone was walking. Very slowly. Each step dragging across the wood like a body being pulled. The footsteps stopped directly above my bed. Silence. A cold drop landed on my forehead. I wiped it away. It wasn't water. It was blood. I stared at the blood on my palm. It was still warm. Another drop landed on my shoulder. Slowly, I looked up. The ceiling looked perfectly normal. No cracks. No holes. Nothing that could explain where the blood was coming from. Yet the drops continued. Drip. 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 Exactly 3. Then, silence. The television suddenly hissed with loud static. The screen slowly came to life. It wasn't showing a TV channel. It was displaying a security camera feed. The camera was positioned at the far end of the third-floor hallway. I could see room 312. My room. I was standing inside, looking through the peephole. Everything matched what was happening at that exact moment. Except for one thing. Someone was standing behind me. A tall man dressed in a white shirt stood less than 6 feet away. His head hung low, completely motionless. I spun around. Nobody. The room was empty. When I looked back at the television, he was still there. Slowly, he raised his head. A horrifying smile spread across his face. Then he placed one finger against his lips. The screen instantly went black. My phone vibrated. Another text message appeared. Don't turn your back on him. Every muscle in my body locked up. For the first time in my life, I was too terrified to turn around. I stood frozen, facing the door. Behind me, I heard breathing. Soft. Cold. Close enough to brush against the back of my neck. I shut my eyes. Only one thought filled my mind. If I turn around, I'll see him. The breathing suddenly stopped. My phone buzzed again. Don't trust the camera. One message warned me not to turn around. The next warned me not to trust what I'd seen. Were there 2 people? Or 2 different things? I opened my laptop. It contained the hotel's security blueprints. If the cameras were still operating, there had to be a server room. Probably in the basement. If I could reach it, maybe I could call for help. Then I opened the building plans. There wasn't a 3rd floor. I checked again. Every blueprint. Every evacuation map. Every architectural drawing. The Raven Hill Hotel only had 2 floors. The floor I was standing on didn't exist. A knock echoed through the room. This time. Only twice. Knock. Knock. A trembling woman's voice came from outside. Please. Please let me in. I need your help. It was the receptionist. I recognized her voice immediately. I know you're awake. I walked toward the door. My hand wrapped around the doorknob. Just as I was about to open it, my phone vibrated. If she's still alive, she'll have a shadow. My blood ran cold. I slowly looked beneath the door. There were feet outside. There was light. But there was no shadow. I pulled my hand away. Silence. Then the woman's voice changed. It became deeper. Rough. Male. Smarter than the others. A low laugh echoed through the hallway. Then it faded away. I knew I had to leave the room. Whatever was happening, staying wasn't an option anymore. I grabbed the fire extinguisher beside the door and threw it open. The hallway was empty. But something made my stomach drop. The carpet was covered in wet footprints, as if someone had walked barefoot through fresh blood. Every footprint led into my room. None of them came back out. Which meant, whatever made them, had already been inside. Long before I noticed. I slowly looked back into the room. The closet door was slightly open. I clearly remembered closing it earlier. Beyond the narrow crack, only darkness. Then, a whisper. Don't let it know that you can see me. I tightened my grip on the fire extinguisher. Step by step, I approached the closet. 3 feet away. 2. 1. I pulled the door open. There were no clothes. No shelves. No walls. Only another hallway. Endless. Pitch black. At the far end stood dozens of people. Every one of them wore hotel uniforms or guest clothing. Every one of them faced me. None of them had eyes. None of them had mouths. Without making a sound, they slowly raised one hand and knocked on the wall. 3 times. Knock. 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 Then, every one of them looked past me, towards something standing behind me. As if the most terrifying thing in that hallway wasn't them. It was whatever had just entered my room. I didn't dare turn around. Every eyeless figure at the end of that endless hallway inside the closet was staring at something behind me. No, not staring. They were terrified. One by one, they began stepping backward into the darkness. None of them turned around. They simply drifted away until the last figure slowly raised a finger to where its lips should have been. A silent warning. Then they were gone. The closet door slammed shut. The room fell into complete silence. The only sound left was my heartbeat. I knew one thing. If I turned around, I'd probably see whatever had followed me into the room. But if I stayed where I was, I'd die anyway. I took a deep breath and sprinted toward the door. I never looked back. The moment I started running, footsteps echoed behind me. They weren't fast. They weren't slow. They matched my pace perfectly. For every 3 steps I took, it took 3. I shoved open the emergency stairwell door. The stairwell was completely dark. Even the emergency lights were dead. I switched on my phone's flashlight. The beam revealed something that made no sense. The stairs weren't numbered by floors. Each landing was marked with room numbers. 312, 313, 314, 315. I kept running. 308, 309, 310. When I finally reached 301, the staircase ended. But instead of the second floor, another hallway stretched out before me. It looked exactly like the one I'd just escaped. That's when I realized I wasn't walking through a hotel anymore. I was trapped inside something pretending to be one. At the far end of the hallway stood a security guard. He looked to be in his 50s. His uniform was soaked in blood, but he was smiling. The moment he saw me, he hurried over. "You can hear it too," he said. I instinctively stepped back. He raised both hands. "Don't be afraid. I used to work here. I've been dead for 12 years. I stared at him in disbelief. "What's following me?" His smile disappeared. He slowly glanced over my shoulder. His face turned pale. "Don't ask. Just remember one thing. If it calls your name, don't answer." At that exact moment, a familiar voice whispered behind me. "Daniel." My entire body froze. It was my mother's voice. She had died 4 years ago. There was no way I could mistake it. "My son. Please. Turn around." Tears filled my eyes. The security guard suddenly screamed. "Don't!" Everyone who turned around never came back. Before I could react, something cold rested gently on my shoulder. Not forcefully. Almost lovingly. Like someone I hadn't seen in years. Every instinct in my body begged me to turn around. Instead, the guard threw himself toward me and shoved me forward. A sickening tearing sound filled the hallway. I looked back. The guard wasn't dragged away. He wasn't attacked. His body was flattening, as if an invisible force had crushed him into paper. Within seconds, he was pressed against the wall like a poster. His eyes remained wide open. His mouth was frozen in a silent scream. But no sound came out. I ran. I had no idea how long. Eventually, I found myself standing in the hotel lobby. The receptionist was still sitting behind the front desk, exactly as she had been when I checked in. She looked at me with quiet sympathy. "I told you. You should never have accepted room 312. What is this place?" I shouted. She reached beneath the counter and placed an old leather guest register in front of me. She opened it to the final page. My name was there. My address. My phone number. Today's check-in date. Everything was correct. Except for one line written beneath my name in red ink. Date of death, October 14th, 2026. Today. I shook my head. No. That's impossible. I'm standing right here. The receptionist looked into my eyes. Then she quietly asked the question I'll never forget. "Who told you that you're still alive?" I stood there, frozen, staring at the old guest register. My name. My birthday. My check-in date. And beneath it, my date of death. Today. I slowly stepped backward. No. I'm still here. I'm alive. The receptionist looked at me with a sadness I'd never seen before. Then she quietly asked, Do you remember how you got here? I drove. Highway 18. I passed through the forest. I stopped for gas. My voice trailed off. The memories suddenly became blurry. I remembered the rain. I remembered the empty road. I remembered gripping the steering wheel. Then, nothing. I couldn't remember arriving at the hotel. I couldn't remember carrying my suitcase inside. I couldn't remember walking into room 312. It was as if someone had erased that part of my memory. The receptionist slowly closed the guest register. That's because you never made it here. The entire hotel suddenly shook. A distant siren echoed through the walls. Then another. Closer. Voices began surrounding me. Hurry. There's still someone inside the car. We're losing him. Clear. The sound of a defibrillator echoed through my head. A violent pain exploded inside my chest. Then the memories came rushing back. Rain. A pair of headlights. The tires losing control. The windshield shattering. The steering wheel crushing my ribs. Blood. So much blood. My car had wrapped itself around a tree. I collapsed to my knees. I crashed. The receptionist nodded. 3 hours ago. I looked up at her. If that's true, then what am I? She answered softly. You're still you. But you're no longer where the living belong. A cold chill ran through my entire body. Then, what has been chasing me? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the end of the lobby. I turned. The man in the white shirt was standing there. For the first time, I saw his face clearly. My heart stopped. It was me. Not someone who looked similar. Not a twin. It was my face. My scars. My watch. Even the same tired eyes. He smiled. I finally found you. I backed away. No. That's impossible. He kept walking toward me. You've been wondering why nobody ever acknowledged you since you checked in. I froze. He was right. No other guests had spoken to me. No one had looked at me. No one had moved out of my way. Even the security cameras had only ever shown me. He laughed quietly. You think the cameras were recording me? They weren't. They were recording the only person who still believed he was alive. I looked at the receptionist. You knew about him? She closed her eyes. I know all of them. Every soul that dies here is given a choice. Move on. Or stay. I frowned. He smiled wider. We're the ones who stayed. At that moment, everything finally made sense. The eyeless people inside the hallway. The security guard. The whispers. The blood. They had all been like me once. People who refused to accept their deaths. As time passed, they forgot who they were. The only thing they remembered was hunting the newly dead, stealing their memories, keeping themselves alive in a place where nothing should exist. I looked at him. Then why? The 3 knocks? He laughed. The knocks were never mine. They belonged to them. Who? The people trying to wake you up. Suddenly, 3 knocks echoed through the entire hotel. Knock. 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 Then another. And another. Soon hundreds of doors were knocking at once. The sound surrounded me from every direction. Through the noise, I heard voices. My mother, my father, my sister, friends I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them calling my name. Then I remembered. The ambulance. The paramedics. They had been performing CPR. 3 compressions. Again. And again. And again. The 3 knocks were never coming from a hotel door. They were the rhythm of people fighting to bring me back. The man lunged toward me. You can't leave. He grabbed my arm. The hotel began falling apart. Walls cracked. The ceiling collapsed. Every door burst open at once. Inside each room, someone was standing. Every single one of them was me. Older, younger, burned, broken, bleeding, smiling. Hundreds of versions of myself whispered together. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! I ran toward the light at the end of the hallway. Hands reached out from every doorway. Cold hands. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They grabbed my arms, my legs, my neck, trying to drag me back into the darkness. The light was only a few feet away. 3 feet. 2. 1. Everything disappeared. I opened my eyes. Bright hospital lights blinded me. A heart monitor beeped beside my bed. A doctor collapsed into a chair, exhausted. You made it, he whispered. A nurse smiled through tears. That last round of CPR brought you back. I looked around the room. Everyone looked completely drained. Someone quietly said, another few seconds, and we would have lost him. For the first time in hours, I smiled. I was alive. 3 months later, I had almost recovered completely. The nightmares stopped. No more hotel. No more hallway. No more knocking. Until one evening, while cleaning out my belongings from the accident, I reached into the pocket of my old jacket. There was a brass hotel key, stamped with one number. 312. My hands began shaking. According to the police, my car had never reached Black Creek. It crashed less than 10 miles from my home. I opened my laptop, searching for one thing. Raven Hill Hotel. No results. No hotel. No town. Nothing. Except one newspaper article from 1958. 33 guests killed in Raven Hill Hotel fire at 3:13 a.m. I stared at the black and white photograph. Standing at the front entrance was an elderly receptionist, wearing the same uniform, smiling directly at the camera. She held an old guest register in her hands. The final page was open. Even in the faded photograph, I could still read the last entry. Room 312. Next guest. Not yet arrived. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more horror stories every week. Your support helps the channel grow and allows me to bring you even darker tales from the shadows. Now, before you leave, take one last look at your front door. If you hear 3 slow knocks tonight, don't look through the peephole. Don't make a sound. And no matter what happens, don't let it know you're awake. Sleep tight.